Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. Kind of had to get professorial with this episode. Got the good old Peterson Professor from the Sherlock Holmes line. Love this pipe so much. And what we're talking about today, well, it's going to sound a little professorial. So that's why the professor is out. Let's get this guy lit, as always, and let's get to talking. So I've mentioned before that I've got this wonderful group of friends. There's 3 other fellas and I, so the 4 of us have a texting group. And we text multiple times every single day. We live all over the United States. And we text everything. Now, we share the highs and lows of life. We share scripture. We share jokes, music videos. We talk politics, everything. Very, very tight-knit bunch of guys. And recently, one of the guys texted us a news article. And I don't remember where this took place, but somebody who identifies as a deer, dressed fully as a deer, who thinks of himself as a deer, was shot by a hunter by accident, taken to the hospital. And that immediately made me think of a play by the Greek tragic playwright Euripides, a play that debuted in 405 BC. So, wow, we're talking, over 2,400 years ago. I mean, really, think about that. 2,400 years ago. And it's a play called The Bacchae. It's capital Bacchae, the Bacchae. So, in light of this news article, I texted the group the plot of this play, which runs as follows. The Greek god Dionysus wanted to set up his cult, and you understand the word cult simply means worship, right? It doesn't necessarily mean a bunch of crazy people going out and drinking Kool-Aid and all committing suicide. No. Doesn't mean that. Cult simply means the worship of a particular deity. So the cult of Dionysus, the cult of Zeus, right? The cult of Hera. He wanted to establish his cult in the city of Thebes. King Pentheus said no to this. Word on the street was that the devotees of Dionysus usually were women. And these women would go out into the woods and have this ecstatic frenzy of worship. Of course, Dionysus, you may recall, it was the Greek god of wine, among other things. And Pentheus didn't want to have that in his city. Well, Dionysus, being a god, says, you're not going to really tell me no on this, and goes ahead and gets a bunch of Theban women followers to worship him out in the wilderness, including King Pentheus's mother. So eventually King Pentheus wants to know what's really going on. But since this is an all-woman thing, he can't just go strolling out there as a man. So he gets a deer hide puts it over himself, and goes out undercover to spy on the women, see what's really going on. Well, he sees these women in their ecstatic, frenzied worship of Dionysus, and they spot a deer, and in their frenzy, which really has lent them almost superhuman strength, right? They're just out of their minds in revelry. These women leap upon the deer, and they rend it limb from limb. Just tear the thing apart with their bare hands. They then take the parts of the deer and start walking back into the city. Now, the other citizens see them coming and see what it is that they are holding. Of course, the actual bloodied limbs of King Pentheus. And there is some grotesquely witty dialogue as the women are coming back and people are saying, or the women are like saying things like, isn't this a wonderful thing that we've done? And the people are saying, oh, it's a wonder, all right, because the women don't realize what they have perpetrated here. Well, as they are coming into the city, they are slowly coming out of their ecstasy, and little by little they begin to realize the grisly trophies that they are carrying are, in fact, the body parts of King Pentheus. And of course, this drives his mother mad, and Dionysus has had his victory now over mortal King Pentheus. It seemed an apt story to tell in light of this news article. Now, why am I talking about that now? So my friend, one of the friends in the group, texted back and he says, I've got something like 3,000 people in my contacts. This particular friend is actually a very well-known author. I'm not going to say his name, but anyhow, he says, I got over 3,000 people in my contact list. And he said, I don't think there's anybody in that list other than you, Steve. He said, who would have known or been able to come up with that story in response to this news article. And I laughed and that's oh, thank you, too much, you flatter me. But then I got to thinking about it. Why shouldn't I be able to do that? As you know, I'm a Latin teacher. I've taught Latin and classics courses now for over 30 years. Some middle school, some undergraduate level, and mostly high school. My degrees are in classics. My bachelor's degree and my master's degree are in classics. Yes, I did the education classes in order to become a teacher, but my degrees, my BA and my MA, are in classics, or classical studies, it's sometimes called. I ought to be able to come up with that story. It's my field. But even more than that, I want to broach the topic of what I'm going to call incarnational teaching. Okay, you think about the incarnation, you think about the second person of the Holy Trinity becomes flesh, right? That's Jesus, the incarnation, right? The enfleshment of the Word. Okay. I'm of the belief, I'm of the conviction that a teacher should embody. And embody is really just another word for incarnation, or to incarnate, to embody. So embodiment, incarnation, the noun forms, are really synonyms. I think a teacher should embody what he or she teaches. I don't think it's enough just for a teacher to and not be an artist herself or himself. I think a physics teacher should be more than just in command of physics formulas, but should have a passion for physics. Should have an enjoyment of that subject. Should know it more broadly and more deeply than what actually gets presented in the classroom. There's only so much time. Even in a collegiate course, there's only so much time to present a topic, right? So a teacher, and I mean a teacher at any level, so professor, right, which is simply a teacher at the university level. We typically make that distinction. But I think a teacher should embody. A teacher should be the incarnation of what he or she teaches. So if I'm a Latin teacher, and I never on my own read works of Greco-Roman antiquity, if I'm a Latin teacher, and I don't have at my fingertips Greco-Roman literature, I think I'm a bit of a fraud. Or at the very least, I'm not all that I could be. I'm not all that I could be. Back when school still had shop classes, remember those? Wood shop, metal shop? I want the wood shop teacher to be a woodworker, right? I want that person to do woodworking on the weekends. Someone who enjoys the craft of woodworking and then happens to go and teach the craft of woodworking. You can have perfectly competent teachers who do not embody what they teach. Perfectly competent, perfectly capable of teaching the core information so the students, they learn. But I would suggest that is entry level. Right? That's bare minimum. What you want. I would think that you would want that as a student. Now, whether you realize that or not, and especially a child or even a teenager is not going to realize that they do want that. But I think ultimately a student should want a teacher who embodies what he or she teaches, who believes in that material, who enjoys that material, who practices that discipline in his or her own life. So, a couple of things to talk about here. One, had you ever heard that story of Pentheus and the Bacchae before? I mean, that's a crazy play. Had you ever heard that before? What's your familiarity with any ancient drama? We have more really from the Greeks, especially on the tragic side, than we do the Romans. Very little in terms of tragedy, and not a whole lot in terms of comedy, really either. But at any rate, what's your familiarity with any Greek or Roman plays, tragedies, or comedies? Maybe things you read back in school. And now what is your thought about my idea of incarnational teaching? Do you think that's important? I'm not saying an absolute requirement, right? As we said, teachers can teach who are not that. The students can get an education. But what do you think of the idea of incarnational teaching? Would love to hear your thoughts. As Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.